Not only are we about to hear from one of the strongest champions for ethanol that we have in Congress, but we also, and I especially have the distinct honor of presenting her with our Legislative Leadership Award for 2026 at the same time before we hear from her. Congressman Michelle Fischbach of Minnesota is here. She represents the 7th District. Many Minnesotans in the audience, and I would venture a guess that many of them are from the 7th District. We give our Legislative Leadership Award each year to someone who goes above and beyond to advance the cause of ethanol. And as we talked about this morning, getting E15 across the finish line in the House of Representatives was an extraordinary feat. And frankly, one a lot of folks, even in the ethanol industry, were unclear could be done, especially on a standalone bill. And Representative Fischbach was absolutely at the tip of the spear when it came to ensuring that this bill not only made it out of the House of Representatives with the strong bipartisan support, but got on the floor of the House of Representatives in addition to that, by virtue of a key leadership role that she plays in Congress on the House Rules Committee, which essentially sets the stage for what happens in the House of Representatives. And so we are enormously grateful to you for your extraordinary leadership on E15, and we're working hard to make sure that the Senate fulfills and makes good on the incredible work that you did. So please help give a very warm welcome and congratulations to Congresswoman Fischbach on being the recipient of the 2026 Legislative Leadership Award.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate this, and this will hold a place of honor in my office in D.C. because it is an incredible honor to work alongside all of those who support ethanol to make sure that we made it across that finish line. I'm going to put this down. Set it there so it doesn't get in the way. But first of all, I just want to say, thank you to Brian and thank you to the entire team at American Coalition for Ethanol for selecting me, because it is an honor that I can't put into words, because, like I said, it is so incredibly important to so much of our country to make sure that we do pass the ethanol E15. And I want to also, I understand there may be some Canadians here, but there are folks from all over the country, so I want to welcome you to Minnesota. So welcome to Minnesota, everybody. And the theme of this year's conference, Fueling Freedom, could not be more fitting. When we talk about biofuels, we're not just talking about energy or agriculture, we're talking about economic freedom for our farmers, energy freedom for American consumers, and national security for a country that should never have to depend on foreign oil. You all do critical work driving ethanol adoption, strengthening our rural economies, and making the vision of American energy independence a reality every day. When I look out at everybody, I see the foundation of rural America. I see multi-generational farm families who pour their sweat and dedication into the soil, skilled processing jobs for our rural communities, and an industry that drives Minnesota's economy. And that's why I am standing up to make biofuels a top priority. Throughout my time in Congress, I've traveled across western Minnesota, and just in case you don't know, the 7th District of Minnesota, basically the western half of Minnesota. So I border Canada, North Dakota, South Dakota, and I am one county short of Iowa. And next time they do redistricting, I'm going to ask for that so I can say I go from the Canadian border to Iowa, but I do have to point out that one county. But we visited processing facilities, we met with farm families, local agribusiness operators, and county leaders. And whether I'm talking to corn growers, county commissioners, or plant managers, the message on the ground has remained consistent and clear. Our agriculture producers are facing intense economic pressure, And over the last few years, our farmers have been hit with increasing input costs, fertilizer prices have skyrocketed, phosphates costs have doubled, and equipment, fuel, seed, and chemical costs remain at historically elevated levels. At the same time, commodity prices have dropped from their recent highs, meaning our growers are working harder than ever to produce record yields, only to face razor-thin margins at the end of the season. The farm sector debt is climbing, and operational risk is at a high. When I talk to producers, all they are asking for is a fair deal. They want a government that gets out of their way. They want tax and regulatory policies that provide long-term certainty and expanded, reliable markets for their crops. I've been told in no uncertain terms that our growers need stable policies, predictable access to inputs, and expanded domestic demand so they can keep those farms for generations to come. That's why ethanol is so critical. It's the strongest domestic demand driver our corn growers have. And when biofuels succeed, growers have a stable floor under their prices. Rural processing plants thrive, and local main streets expand. Hearing those concerns directly from our growers has continued to fuel my fight in Congress. I am proud to report that we've been taking that fight straight to the House floor and delivering real tangible wins for American energy and agriculture. By passing this legislation out of the House, we took a monumental step towards establishing permanent, nationwide, year-round access to E15. And I will tell you, during that process, we flexed our muscles a bit because leadership and other members were not taking us seriously. But we made sure they understand the strength of rural America and those who represent it. And we used that to make sure they understand that we're here to stay and we are going to continue to push this. And as this legislation moves through the Senate, we're continuing our push to ensure it gets signed into law. We want to give our biofuels producers certainty from year to year. Permanent E15 is a major milestone, but the work in Washington doesn't stop there. To truly fuel freedom and unlock the full potential of American agriculture, we must ensure our tax code and regulatory landscape provide clear, workable guidelines. One of those regulations is 45Z, the Clean Fuel Production Tax Credit that we worked very hard to make sure was in the One Big Beautiful Bill. As ethanol producers make capital investments to lower carbon intensity and increase efficiency, Washington must deliver clear, practical guidelines for 45Z. Our producers cannot make investment decisions shrouded by regulatory ambiguity. There's my word for the day that I can't pronounce. I am actively pressing the Treasury and federal agencies to implement 45Z in a way that fully recognizes farming practices, rewards domestic feedstock usage, and supports American energy production. I'm also maintaining oversight over the Renewable Fuel Standard, the RFS, and the EPA must maintain robust blending volumes and reject small refinery exemption waivers that undercut domestic ethanol demand. Our regulators must follow the law and uphold strong RFS volumes to create the market stability our farm economy needs. Protecting the biofuel supply chain also means protecting our growers' ability to produce a crop. Recently, I led a bipartisan letter to the EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin advocating for access to, and this is another word I can't pronounce, chlorpyrifos. Did I get it? Did I get close? Okay. A crop protection tool that many of you already know, but that growers depend on. This is just one example of how we are demanding that regulatory decisions be transparent and based on science. Through the Fertilizer Transparency Act and the push to revoke harmful countervailing duties on imported phosphate. We're working to lower input costs and support domestic fertilizer production, ensuring our growers can remain competitive. As we look to the future, the potential for American agriculture extends far beyond standard fuel blending. Ethanol is our foundation, but the broader bioeconomy represents an unprecedented opportunity for growth. That's why I've introduced the Bio-Based Materials Investment Production Act. Countless everyday products, from industrial chemicals to packaging, depend on foreign petroleum. This bipartisan legislation creates targeted production and investment tax credits for facilities that process American-grown agriculture biomass into renewable biofuels materials. Over 100 agriculture organizations have endorsed this bill, recognizing that converting agricultural output into bio-based products creates a resilient domestic supply chain and opens new markets for American growers. The work being done by the American Coalition for Ethanol is about the future of rural America. It's about making sure that families can build a life on the farm, our rural main streets continue to thrive, and our nation remains strong. Ethanol is vital to Minnesota and the nation. It's vital to our farm families. I am honored, truly honored, to receive the 2026 Policy and Legislative Leadership Award. And please know that as long as I have the privilege of serving in Congress, you will always have a champion fighting for your freedom to feed and fuel the country. And I thank you for your leadership, and I thank you for being there for rural America. And thank you for the award. And God bless American agriculture, and I look forward to your questions.
We have some mics set up. We have mics set up in the hall, so if you have a question, please step to the mic, introduce yourself, and go ahead and ask your question.
Hello, Harmon Wiltz from Benson, Minnesota, Chippewa Valley Ethanol.
In the 7th. There you go.
Yep, good to see you. I really want to thank you because we went out and seen you in March, and we were talking about ethanol, and we said, hey, we need a champion. And I want to thank you because you took that discussion and became a champion, got this done. So appreciate that. Thank you. It is the E15 and ethanol seems like on our farm the future of our next generation to come out and stay viable, and our rural areas too. So we appreciate that as we all look to expanding and helping our rural areas some more. So more so than a question, thank you. But my question is, what can you do to help the Senate get going? So I'll get this done.
The Senate is, you know what, I will say this. I am hopeful because it came through in their farm bill. So we've got the E15. I think our struggle is going to be at this point is making sure that we can bring a compromise between the two versions, because their version is a little bit different. So we're continuing that, and I know that G.T. Thompson he was in Minnesota a couple of weeks ago or last week, whenever it was, but had that discussion with him, and he is incredibly supportive of E15. And honestly, I don't know if anybody realizes the reason it couldn't be part of the farm bill coming out of the U.S. House Ag Committee is because it's not in their jurisdiction. In the House, E15 is in E&C, so that's why we had to pull it from rules. We had a bill sitting in rules and use that to bring it to the floor that way, and so we had to use the parliamentary procedure and the rules to make sure we got it to the floor that way. But I think with the discussions going on right now, the fact that they are obviously supportive of it, we just have to figure out how we're going to make that and how we're going to bring those coalitions together so that we can get it then, once we've changed it, passed by both bodies. So, and the president has said he's supportive of it. We've talked to him about it. I know that Randy Feenstra out of Iowa did. I have. We've been pushing him. Yep. Oh, there's another one.
Dave Ellen, South Dakota Corn. As we see this conflict in the Middle East, people are paying more at the pumps. We have American farmers who can produce the feedstock, American workers who can produce the ethanol, American consumers who can use the ethanol. Why does E15, SAF, all these other things that can move the needle for America is more of an agriculture or ethanol issue as opposed to an American energy security issue?
And it absolutely should be. To me, it is. I mean, we learned a lot. You looked at a lot of the issues during COVID and the supply chain and all the things that we couldn't get a hold of. This is energy. and it does, and it's consumer. It's lower cost. I drive a flex fuel vehicle. That's how old it is. It's getting old now, but so I understand when I look at the prices, and I think people are feeling that, and so we should be promoting this so that they are able to save that money. And I think part of there's different opposition. That as we were discussing this and having the trying to negotiate something that would pass, some people are just they don't want any kind of alternative fuel. Period. They support the oil, and in the case of the House version, API, the American Petroleum Institute, did support this legislation. We had them on board, and I think that there's just kind of that. There's a variety of reasons why they're not supporting it. Like I said, they don't want any kind of alternative fuel. There are people that oppose the RFS. That was one thing I heard. Gentlemen who just absolutely, I want it eliminated. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want. And then there's those folks that supported oil refineries. And the medium-sized oil refineries that thought they were getting the short end of the stick on that, although they were just kind of being told that they had to follow the law more so than being cut out. But so we are continuing to talk about it as a national security issue, because the more energy we can produce here, the less we have to deal with foreign oil. And so I think in many people's minds, yes, it is, but we have to make sure that the opposition understands that. You guys need more coffee. Come on.
Congresswoman, a question back to the conversations with the members of Congress that represent the refining interests. One of the things that we think is important to convey to them, that yes, they represent important constituencies in their districts and their states, but there is sort of a contrast today. Farmers continue to suffer from those high input prices and relatively low market prices. Consumers are paying a lot at the pump. Refineries are making quite a bit of money right now. We just had a speaker, sort of a worldwide known analyst on energy markets, talk about the refining profits and how crazy they are. So I hope you're part of a conference committee when the Senate passes E15, not if, because of the leadership role you played. And just want to arm you with that as you have those conversations with those members of Congress, whether they're Democrats or Republicans that are looking out for the refiners, there's a gigantic contrast economically in terms of what's happening to their constituents really and what's happening to your constituents when it comes to especially agriculture. So just wanted to point that out.
Well, and thank you. I appreciate that. And I will tell you a little bit about, we had the, I can't remember what we called it, but the council, as we were leading this, the council that came together. And we had members from oil states. We had members from ethanol states. And we had a lot of those, discussions about what's going on with refineries. And I thought with the House version, we were able to deal with a lot of those concerns, and we made a good product. We had a very small number of the refineries, those medium sized, that were actually not supportive. The small and large were good, and I think so we will move forward. And I think a lot of the folks that participated in those discussions on that council understand. They get it. And so we just have to continue to make sure that those folks, that people understand what's going on with refineries. And this is the future. This is absolutely, biofuels are the future. And we need to make sure they understand that. They're just a little harder to accept than the rest of us are.
Hi there. John Lipke, I'm on the board of CVEC. I'm not your constituent, but I'm in Brad's district, and I wish you both the best this fall.
And Brad's okay.
Yes.
Then he's talking about Brad Finstead from the 1st District, so southern Minnesota, and he's okay.
Okay.
No, he's a dear friend of mine, and
I know.
I jokingly say he really needs to get reelected because he's in a tough race right this year. And I said, because I'm very selfish, because if he loses, I won't have anyone to make fun of.
There we go. So anyway, E10 kind of got started because of the oxygenate, to clean up the air. Now, E15 is obviously better for the air. I'm not quite sure it's another 5 points, but can that get in Washington a little bit? Get it on the environmental, besides just helping farmers?
And I have been talking about that, and yes, we are trying to make them understand. Because, and I don't, maybe you guys have a better understanding of, I remember when ethanol was coming into play and people were talking about this as a great environmental, and the environmentalists were supporting it and pushing it, and it was, but now they seem to forget about that, and that there is that benefit to it too. It's not just about the farm. We're also talking about, cleaner burning fuel.
Right.
And I talk about it and I try to remind people about it. But I do think, I think the environmentalists have kind of gone a different direction. And so we'll have to continue to remind people of that
Thank you.
It's important. Yeah.
Congresswoman, thank you so much for being here today. My name's Charlie Scott. I'm with Golgix. We're a production intelligence company supporting biofuels and a few other industries. I'm not from Minnesota, and I'm sure many people hold that against me. But
well, welcome to Minnesota.
Thank you. It's
God's
good to be
country.
here. It's
Yes.
good to be here. E15 makes too much sense, and I think we talk a lot about that in this room. And just taking a different look at this, when things make too much sense in Washington, maybe particular offices feel like they have leverage. And I'm wondering if there are particular senator offices that we should be focused on, and maybe if there is some idea that you have about concessions that we could be giving to execute some sort of horse trade and get the right people on board.
Well, and I think that, as you're talking about horse trading or making, I think those, where there some of those discussions are beginning between, the two Bozeman and GT. So we're working through that. I don't know if there's in particular right now that there's something I can point to and say that has to go or this has to go. I think it's kind of it's a process that's going to take a little bit, and it's probably not going to be real pretty. But we have to figure out where their real opposition is from, and if they're bringing in if those medium-sized refineries are really what's pushing them, or if there's other things. Is it the RFS? Is it their what are their issues and why they wrote it the way they did? So we're working it through, but I would say, the way to influence is really make sure that all of your senators, and I think you can probably open it back up to House members too, and say we have to have E15 so that they understand that if it's not perfect when it comes back exactly the way they wanted it, that they should support it either way. So when it comes back, to the House or it comes back as part of the Farm Bill, they need to make sure that they're on board. So any calls, any information you can get to those members, both Senate and House, would help us greatly.
All right, we'll see you in Washington. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Good morning. I'm Ron Lamberty. With ACE. My job is mostly to deal with retailers and refiners, oil companies, that sort of thing, about putting ethanol in and telling them that most of the stories they've been told about E15 tearing things apart are lies and have been for a long time. What I hear as far as the question a little back about the environmentalist is that the E15 is still too much gas. They've gone from saying E10 is great because it's more ethanol, and at the time most of it was still zero. Now they say, well, but this will just extend the length of how long gas is in the marketplace, and 85 is still too much, and they still would mostly like electric cars. What I wonder about that is, calling the environmentalists on the fact that E85 is still out there. Flex fuel vehicles, like
Yep.
you drive, like I drive. You got conversion kits that are available, all that sort of thing. Right now, we're seeing most places where the cost of the actual cost with taxes of E85 is close to $1 a gallon, as opposed to the wholesale cost of gas being $3.50 a gallon. And we're working to make sure that retailers reflect that on the street. But with that big gap, I'm wondering if there not to say, hey, thanks for E15 and let's go to the next one, but is there any idea that you think we would have a shot at sort of resurrecting some of that excitement that we had with E15 or E85 back in the early in 2006, 2007, when they were talking about making all vehicles flex fuel? Because that would give everybody the ability to use as much ethanol as they want or none. I just wonder if that's something that we would be able to get any traction on.
I think one of the things we need to continue to talk to the public about is that it's a lower cost, because that's where people are hurting right now. Is they're talking about the affordability, they're talking about making ends meet, and so I really think that's where one of our winning arguments is going to be, is saying it is lower cost, and it is. So making sure they understand that. I don't know if we've, you mentioned the electric vehicles, and so we may have kind of, the environmentalists may have kind of left us by the wayside, because they are kind of all hugs and kisses with their electric vehicles now. And so that's their real push right now.
I wish everybody liked us because it was American made and doesn't pollute and that sort of thing. But, what we saw when the bill passed is that it's price, and we're that too. So that's a great thing. So thank you for all you've done.
Thank you. And I'll tell you a story. Someone, after we passed E15, one of the other members, and I won't tell you who it is, sent us all cobs of corn, sent us a cob corn, and to our offices, and said congratulations. And so I took a picture and I sent it back, and I said, will you send me 2 when we pass E30? And then I gave the cob of corn to one of my staff, so I think they had dinner that night. So,
all right, I think we're going to wrap up. Let's thank the Congresswoman very much for her time and her leadership.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate it, and thank you for this honor, too. Thank you.
Security, because I leave my bag here. I have to go on stage. All right. Be nice with the questions.
All right, our next panel is a group of 3 gentlemen who are going to talk about some of the new uses that we've all heard about, experts from the fields where they're going to be using it, and I'm pretty excited about some of this, and we'll do the same thing here as we get done. They're going to give short presentations, and then hopefully we'll be able to take some questions for you on those, finding out whether, what's new, what's real, how fast, all that sort of thing. So I appreciate the fact that they've all agreed to be here, and I left my bios there. So I'm going to just tell you. And I think we were going to go with Jeff first. Yeah. Our first speaker, Jeff Davidman, from Delta, to talk about SAF. And we had a short call to try and get rid of this, to try and figure out what it was we were all going to discuss here, and I got educated just in that short call because we've all heard a lot of things about it, and it's always interesting, what's the hype, what's real. So he's going to go first and talk about this. We'll hold all the questions till the end, but Jeff, if you want to come up here, I'm going to sneak back.
I think, can we stay in our chairs?
Yeah, it's right here. Yeah. Oh, that's right. We're going to sit in the chairs, so we're going to stay there. So I'll give you the clicker, and then I'm going to go grab my paper so I know what I'm saying. So I know what I'm saying next.
Well, thank you, everybody. It's great to be here. What you didn't see behind the scenes is I think we just scrambled up on getting the deck up. So thanks for bringing my deck up, and it's a great honor to be here. My name's Jeff Davidman. I'm the Vice President of State and Local Government Affairs at Delta Airlines, and have been working on sustainable aviation fuel from a policy perspective for the last 3 or 4 years as a significant part of what we've been working on here in the Midwest and really around the country. And be remiss if I also didn't welcome you to Minnesota. This is my home, and it's also Delta's second largest hub in the world. So hopefully some of you may have flown in on Delta, and so welcome and welcome to Minneapolis. It's really exciting to be here to talk about SAF. As I've said, I've been working on this issue for the last number of years. I've been at the airline for 20 years, and I have to say it's been really the most interesting issue. And if you track the last 20 years in the airline industry, there's been some interesting issues to work on. This really has been one of my favorites because we're really starting from something brand new and trying to build an economy there. And when I started talking about this a few years ago, it was really a theory. It was an idea that we were thinking about and that we were excited about. As you'll see in our presentation today, that theory is now reality, and we're really excited about the progress we've made and the opportunities for the future. So the first way I always like to talk is why is Delta interested in sustainable aviation fuel? And I'll certainly be talking about SAF from a Delta perspective. Some of it may be just airline as a whole from an industry perspective as well. But really, it started a few years ago when we made a commitment to get to net zero by 2050. And when you do that, you first have to start with what does your carbon footprint look like today? And what we realized very, very fast is 98%. We can do all these different things on the ground. We can electrify the ground equipment. We can do other things as well. But 98% of our footprint is what happens in the air. So that's really what you got to look at. So then you start looking at what makes up that 98%. And really, we divide into 3 categories. It's what we fly, how we fly, and the fuel that we're using. And so the what we fly is the aircraft. And we always have an ongoing program where we're bringing in new, more fuel efficient and newer aircraft into our fleet. I'm getting a little bit of feedback. I don't know if others are as well. Thank you. That's great. So we're always bringing a new fleet into our system that are more fuel efficient, and by doing that, we can tackle about 25% of our goal. And then we look at how we fly. What do we put on the aircraft? Can we take some weight off the plane? Can we fly in a different way, working with our partners at the FAA, speed up here, slow down there, take better routes that are more fuel efficient? And we can do that, and that's about all of 7 to 10% of our goal. So it really comes down to fuel. When we thought about our goal from a sustainability standpoint, somewhere between 65 and 70% is really the fuel that we're using in our aircraft. And the way that we solve that 70% is sustainable aviation fuel. So it really became very, very quickly really the most important part of our strategy. And we're making progress. My eyesight is absolutely terrible. I know it's there, but I'll look at my sheet.
There you go. You just blew it up.
Oh, perfect. Thank you very much. So we're making progress in all the categories that we talked about. But to highlight with SAF is, we've now grown in our use of SAF by 80%, which sounds like a great stat. We'll put that in publications. It's fantastic. But 80% of not using a lot is still not a lot. So we are now at 23 million gallons of SAF this year, which is really exciting when you consider we were at about 2 million gallons just a few years ago. But as we'll get into as we look at numbers, Delta Airlines alone uses 4 billion gallons of fuel every single year. So we're really excited about the progress we're making. But really what's important is how do we continue to grow that number and get more and more SAF produced every single year so that we as the customer who wants to buy it have that available to us. So just to sort of level set, I think most people in the room probably now know what SAF is, but it's a drop-in fuel that we can use today in our aircraft, and we do use it today in our aircraft. We can blend it at up to a 50% a blending rate with conventional jet fuel. And as I said, we are using our aircraft all over the world. We use it in California. We've used it where they have the LCFS. We've used it in Europe where they have more of the mandate. And we're starting to use it in other airports as well. We've done pilot projects out of Minnesota, and really exciting, just a month ago, as I talk about this going from theory to reality, we just cut the ribbon on a brand new SAF blending facility that is 5 miles away from MSP Airport at the Flint Hills refinery. It's the first SAF blending facility outside of the state of California in the country, right here in Minnesota. We will be flying SAF out of MSP before the end of the year, and we're really excited about that. As I said, it's safe. We know we can use it not only in our infrastructure and our aircraft, and our engine, once it's blended at a 50% blend rate, our engines don't see the difference. Our aircraft doesn't see the difference. It operates perfectly. It's certified at that number. Our hope over time, as we work with both the aircraft manufacturer and the engine manufacturers, is that blend rate is going to continue to increase from 50% to 60, 70, and all the way up. It also works in the infrastructure